Good afternoon, class. Welcome to this lesson. My name is Ana Maria Vega. I'm the teacher for the courses related with F&B management in Universidad Latina in Costa Rica. I hope you are going to enjoy very well this lesson today. Today we are going to talk a little bit about a specific topic which is very related with F&B, that is food safety management. Everything related with HACCP. Hazard analysis and critical control points. The topics that we're going to discuss today are, first of all, the concept of HACCP. Then we're going to watch a video which is around 15 minutes. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the benefits of implementing the HACCP process in a hotel or in a restaurant. Then the different objectives, the different steps that we have to follow in order to develop this program, and the principles, how to do it. First, we are going to explain a little bit about the definition about HACCP. HACCP is Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Point. And if we break down the definition, we can say that hazard is something that we can damage someone or is related with danger or risk. Analysis means that you need to discover or you need to make a research of investigation of something. Then we have critical, which means that is very important with a big importance. Control means that you have to check, that you have to manage. And finally, points is related that you have to follow some steps in order to develop the process. A theoretical definition, as you can see on the screen, maybe you can read with me the definition of the concept, is HACCP is a scientific and rational approach to food safety which analyzes potential hazards, determines the critical control points in a food process, and develops monitoring procedures to determine if the hazards identified are being effectively controlled. In this concept, the most important words that you have to take on count to relate the definition is analysis, determination, and monitoring procedures. This is the three important words. Then I invite you to watch the video, which is around 15 minutes. This video is going to explain you very well how the process of HACCP is developed in the gastronomy industry.
There is a way for food processors to protect themselves, their product, and their customers from foodborne illness. It's called HACCP, and that means Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point. HACCP was developed for the NASA space program, where, as you can imagine, the food has to be absolutely safe. Thousands of operations around the world use HACCP-based food safety programs in various stages of food production. It's a highly respected and effective system.
HACCP is being used from farm to fork, since food safety starts at animal and crop production right through to processing, food distribution, and retail food service. HACCP is recognized as the single most effective way to eliminate, reduce, or control hazards in any food handling or processing operation.
We'll talk more about the HACCP system itself in just a few moments. But first, let's look at some of the potential problems HACCP helps to control. North America has one of the safest food processing industries in the world. But as advanced as our industry might be, the need to identify and control hazards remains vital for the continued safety of our food supply, whether they're chemical, physical, microbiological, or allergy related.
Let's take a look at these hazards. Allergenic hazards are proteins that cause allergic reactions ranging from runny nose or itchy eyes to rashes, respiratory problems, or even death. Allergenic hazards may include eggs, shellfish, nuts, soy, wheat, sesame seeds, sulfites, and milk. Biological hazards include illness-causing bacteria, such as Salmonella or E. coli, viruses such as hepatitis A, parasites, and molds. Chemical hazards include cleaning compounds, pesticides, preservatives, antibiotics, and even food ingredients that are added in at incorrect levels. Physical hazards could include glass or metal fragments, stones, wood splinters, or bone pieces. These 4 hazard types could be associated with ingredients, processing aids, processing steps, or the processing environment. Here we're talking about improper temperature control, equipment sanitation, and of course, the personal hygiene of employees. It's important that potential food safety hazards are known, understood, and dealt with properly by all employees. In past years, food processors often relied on their quality control personnel and inspection systems to monitor product safety and quality. Finished product testing was the tool used to determine product safety.
HACCP is a highly effective preventative control system. It identifies potential food safety problems first and then shows the best way to prevent, reduce, or eliminate them. HACCP builds ongoing safety measures right into the production, processing, distribution, and retail of foods.
Keep in mind that HACCP is a preventative control system. Good manufacturing practices, or HACCP prerequisites, address those hazards associated with the environment where food is processed. About 90% of the work that is done when developing a HACCP system is spent on development of the prerequisite programs. Why? The processing environment needs to be a safe place to produce food. A great deal of control needs to be exercised in order to prevent hazards in the processing environment from compromising food safety. Good manufacturing practices must be in place before a HACCP system can work. In a processing plant, HACCP plans focus specifically on each product and on each food production line. This is where a hazard associated with the product can be eliminated or reduced to an acceptable level. For example, cooking a meat product to kill pathogens or disease-causing bacteria.
HACCP plans provide an organized, documented way to ensure food safety, and all staff at every step of the process are involved.
Governments play an important role in food safety, and as a result, some agencies around the world have made HACCP mandatory as a condition of trading products between countries. A given country may require that meat products sold into that country be produced in a facility that has HACCP in place. The HACCP system is so effective that a large number of manufacturers, retailers, and food service companies insist that their suppliers adopt HACCP in their operations to ensure that the products supplied are the safest possible.
HACCP increases confidence in the safety of food products. The bottom line, HACCP increases a processing plant's competitive advantage.
HACCP provides food suppliers and their customers with more confidence in product safety. It's a powerful tool in preventing hazards because it builds safety right into each step of the food processing.
HACCP is simple. It's effective, and this is how it works. There are 7 principles in the HACCP system. The first principle is to conduct a hazard assessment.
This means to identify hazards associated with the food product in question. It includes assessing hazards in growing and harvesting ingredients, processing, distribution, merchandising, and even how people prepare their food before eating it. That's a lot of information, so let's break it down. As mentioned earlier, a hazard is something biological, allergenic, chemical, or physical in food that could cause a health problem. An important part of hazard assessment is determining the level of risk with each hazard. This is done by checking into the likelihood of a hazard actually occurring, and also by looking at the severity of consequences, or how badly this hazard might affect people's health. To help understand a hazard's probability and the severity of consequences, let's look at the example of raw meat. The probability that raw meat contains harmful bacteria is considered medium. But even so, if handled properly, the raw meat is not likely to hurt someone's health because most meat is cooked properly. So the hazard risk is assessed as low. Let's use the cooking step for a hamburger as another example. The severity of illness associated with an undercooked hamburger is high, as dangerous E. coli may survive, and it is known that low numbers can cause serious illness. The probability that this will happen is low if the hamburger is cooked properly, so the hazard risk is assessed as low.
Assessment helps determine which hazards are of the greatest likelihood and severity to need the controls of a HACCP system. The second HACCP principle is to determine critical control points. Now, this is important because if control is lost, it's likely that human health will be compromised. A critical control point, or CCP, is a control step used to prevent, eliminate, or reduce a hazard to an acceptable level. The third principle of HACCP is to establish the critical limits that must be met at each of the identified critical control points.
Critical limits are what must be met to ensure that a critical control point effectively controls a hazard. Criteria most frequently used for critical limits are time, temperature, water activity, pH, preservatives, microbiological, and sensorial information. In the production of fluid or whole egg product, pasteurization is a critical control point. The most crucial parameters, the critical limits, are the duration and the temperature of pasteurization. For example, the temperature that egg must be pasteurized at and the holding time.
These time-temperature combinations are minimum critical limits that have been established to make sure that harmful microorganisms are destroyed. These critical limits help ensure that food products are safe. Now, the fourth principle is to establish and implement procedures to monitor each critical control point. Monitoring is the process of checking that the critical limits set for each CCP are being met.
Monitoring involves systematically observing, measuring, and recording the most important factors needed for control. Continuous control using automated methods is best. When continuous monitoring isn't possible, regularly scheduled monitoring by trained personnel is needed. Quick, easy methods are best suited for monitoring so a problem can be identified and corrected immediately. Record all monitoring data for future reference. And remember that at times it might be necessary to make adjustments to the CCP monitoring to ensure food stays safe.
The fifth principle: take prompt corrective action whenever the monitoring indicates that limits are not met. If proper corrective action isn't taken, human health might be at risk.
The corrective action to be taken depends on the potential hazard. This might include stopping production, extending the cooking time, increasing processing temperature, increasing acidity, or reworking or discarding product. For our hamburger example, it would require that cooking continue until the critical limit of 71 degrees Celsius is met. For canning, it would mean that the required time, temperature, and/or pressure is met.
The sixth principle is to establish verification procedures. Now, verification procedures reveal whether or not identified food safety activities are actually getting completed. This means checking the checker or asking the question, is it getting done?
One example of a verification procedure is to determine if the process is getting done properly. This can be done by evaluating the records associated with a given CCP. Are the records being filled out properly at the required frequency? Can the person who is doing the documentation be identified by their initials? Were corrective actions, if any, taken effective in controlling the hazard? For example, if the temperature of the hamburger was taken and it was recorded as 66 degrees Celsius, the corrective action should indicate that the hamburger was further cooked and temperature measured again to ensure that it reached the critical limit of 71 degrees Celsius. Other verification activities include interviewing staff on their understanding of the CCP, corrective actions, and record-keeping requirements, and to observe the staff member who is monitoring the CCP to ensure they are doing the monitoring properly. A final verification activity may include product testing for the presence of the hazard of concern.
The seventh principle is to establish documentation and record-keeping procedures. Documentation must be kept on file, including details on how the HACCP team conducted the hazard analysis and determined the critical control points and the critical limits. Records should be kept for activities like CCP monitoring, deviations and corrective actions, and any modifications made to the HACCP system. This is also known as the logbook of changes.
A permanent record is invaluable in showing whether safe, correct processing conditions are being completed, or in showing that any out-of-control processes are properly corrected. Once records and documents have been developed, they need ongoing attention to ensure they are being used properly and that they stay up to date. But the time put in is well worth it. Another important part of HACCP is validation. Validating is making sure that your process is effective in controlling hazards. It means asking yourself, is the process working? For example, does the pasteurizer always reach the temperature of 75 degrees Celsius for 16 seconds, and does this destroy all harmful bacteria every time? We have now reviewed the 7 principles of implementing a HACCP plan. Remember, HACCP requires constant upkeep so the system ensures food safety. This keeps people safe and keeps food products safe, reliable, and more competitive in the marketplace.
Does HACCP work? Definitely. We've heard about how it can reduce the amount of finished product testing required, lower costs for nonconformance, and increase confidence in food products. HACCP generates a great degree of assurance for food safety.
Employees who have worked with the system say that HACCP gives them more responsibility for operating procedures and a greater sense of pride in their work.
There are helpful materials available for you to learn more about the HACCP system and how to put it into place. For more information on these reference materials, please visit the Alberta Agriculture and Food website. All it takes is some time and commitment to reap the rewards of a well-designed and implemented HACCP system. To learn how to put HACCP into practice, see Module 2 of HACCP, Making Food Products Safe.
Okay, after watching the video, maybe you have already very clear the concept because the video was very clear and detailed with the different steps and processes that the HACCP process has. We can talk a little bit about the benefits. When we decide as manager to develop this kind of programs, it's very important to think about the benefits this program are going to bring us as a business. First of all, we have compliance and improvement. You need to improve and you need to see very well what you are doing now and what you need to change in order to be better. Then, obviously, we have a very important point, which is better management. If you develop this kind of process, obviously, you need to change some procedures. So this is going to help you to be a better manager. And then something related with customers, which is higher confidence ratings and increasing of the customer loyalty. If a customer knows that you are a business that follows this kind of processes, this is going to give to the customer a very confident at the time he goes to the restaurant to eat, because he knows that the manipulation and the hygiene is at very high levels. So this is very important for you as managers. Then we have the different departments in a hotel or in a restaurant which are involved in this process. So something important in HACCP is that you have to create a kind of committee. The committee, the most of the time, is with some of the key managers of the hotel And we can mention, for example, the F&B manager, the executive chef, maybe some of the managers of the restaurants, then the maintenance manager, and the human resources manager. These are the key areas involved in this process. So as you can see in the screen, we have these 5 areas mentioned. First of all, we have the kitchen and restaurant people. Why this department? Because they are the ones who produces the food. So, and they are in charge, or they are responsible of producing safety food for clients. So it's very important that these staff are very well trained, and they know very well how to manipulate food in order to avoid cross-contamination. Then we have the maintenance department. The maintenance department is a key department also because they are in charge of the repairment of the equipment, and also they are in charge of the pest control. So the maintenance department should be checking all the time that the equipment in the kitchen and in the restaurant are in good conditions. And also they are responsible of contracting the supplier for the pest management. And as maybe you already know, in every hotel you should apply the pest management at least once a month in the whole areas in order to avoid this kind of pesting. Then we have cleaning department. The cleaning department is very important because they are the one in charge of the general cleaning of the whole establishment, and also the responsible for the specific cleaning areas, like the deep cleaning in the kitchen and the deep cleaning in the restaurants, and the cleaning of the equipment also. And then we have human resources, because human resources are the department who is going to help us in order to develop the training programs of the hotel, and also train the supervisors about this. So every establishment, every hotel, or every restaurant should have a kind of annual training plan when they decide in advance what kind of topics they are going to be trained their people, and this is how human resources is going to help in order to develop this kind of plans. And also something important is the personal hygiene, and the personal hygiene applies for everybody, for every employee. So you should train your people how to use correctly the uniform and how they use the personal hygiene. Something important also at the time you are going to develop a HACCP program is to ask you as managers some questions. For example, what you are doing right now, which is the status that you have right now in your hotel, and which is the status that you want in the future. So you need to establish what you want to change in order to develop the program. Then, why you are doing this, and why you want to do this and this, which is new. Then the desired results. What are the different desired results that you want to achieve in the future at the time you develop HACCP? And what you are doing now to achieve these results, and what you need to do in the future to achieve the results. So with these questions, you can start thinking with your team about the different changes that you need to do in your area in order to develop the program. Objectives. Let's talk a little bit about the different objectives that you need to develop or apply when you have the HACCP system. We have these 5 that you see on the screen. I think all of them are very important. First of all, we have prevention of foodborne illness. If you develop a HACCP program, you are going to prevent this at all, because you are going to follow some steps in order to avoid cross-contamination. Then we have more efficient quality assurance system. This is very, very important because HACCP, with HACCP you need to follow steps. So when you follow steps, you have better control of the areas. So that's why your activities are going to be more efficient. Then we have reduction. Reduction of what? We have first reduction of costs of food analysis, because if you have hazard, you are going to avoid any kind of contamination or any kind of products in bad condition. So with this, you are going to reduce your costs in food production, and on the other hand, you can reduce losses, or you can reduce expenses in product recall. So you are going to have less complaints from the customers. And something important, which is protection of your reputation, because as I said before, your customers are going to be more confident, your customers are going to be more loyal, because your products are going to be very confident for them. You are assuring to the customer that everything is well prepared, in good conditions, everything is going to be well done. So in this case, you are going to protect your brand, your image, and your reputation. Shared responsibility. Why we can say that HACCP is shared responsibility to be effective? Because we need to have farmers or suppliers, in this case, which are also involved with HACCP. You need to buy your products to this kind of supplier, the supplier who are going to apply HACCP also in their farms. So in here you can see on the screen that the farmers are the first people involved. Then we have manufacturers, because the manufacturers also should be involved with HACCP, and they should apply HACCP in order to assure you that you are going to receive a product in good condition. And then we have the consumers, our clients, okay? Because even though if the clients buy the products in a restaurant, or if they buy the products for their own consumption at home, they should be responsible about this. What kind of products they are going to buy, and how to manipulate the products. So here we go to this concept, which is called from farm to fork. So in this image that you can see on the screen, we have that we call the food production chain. You can see in the screen the process that starts with the farmers. So we have the production parts. Even though if we have a livestock, or if we have production of vegetables, fruits, or any kind of product that grow over on soil, and this kind of production is going through the process part, from the process part jump into the distribution part, and then goes to two places, maybe to a restaurant or maybe to retail. When we say retail, we are talking about supermarkets, for example, when you can buy by yourself and you can buy the product that you need. And then we have two different kinds of preparation. We have restaurant preparation, the one that we sell for consumers, or the home preparation, which is the one that we prepare at home for our own consumption. So if you see in the whole production chain, we need to apply HACCP, or every part involved should apply HACCP in order to assure to the final consumer that the product is in good conditions. That's why we call this concept from farm to fork. Principles. We have the HACCP principles. HACCP has 7 different steps that you need to follow in order to develop the program. So, principle number 1 is conduct a hazard analysis. What is the meaning of this? The meaning of this is that you are going to investigate, or you are going to look for research in order to find if the product that you have in that moment is a hazard for your consumers. How? Hazard means any kind of biological, chemical, or physical property which may cause a food to be unsafe for human consumption. So all that you are going to do is to test your products, maybe in a random way, in order to see if any of these products has a hazard or not. If you find a hazard, what you are going to do to prevent it or to eliminate it, okay? If you don't find a hazard, that means that everything is okay, so you can continue with the process without problem. In this step, our main objective is to reduce the bacterial or the viral contamination on the potentially hazardous foods, which are known as PHF, as you can see on the screen. Here, you have the potentially hazardous foods. What kind of foods are more potentially to be hazardous? We have these 4 categories that I'm going to explain to you. First of all, we have the kind of food which is with high protein contents. For example, fish, cheese, turkey, or pork. Then we have another category, which is the kind of food with high carbo content, like sugar, pizza, potatoes, cookies, or cakes. Then we have the ones which are high fat content, like, for example, chocolate, butter, fish oil, nuts, or processed meats. And then we have the final category, which are the food that grow over or in the soil. For example, carrots, broccolis, potatoes, just to mention some. Okay, so this kind of example are the ones that we know potentially hazardous foods. That means that this kind of foods, so these categories are the ones that we need to take care more about at the time we are going to produce them or to use them at the time of the production in the restaurant. Which are the most common hazards that we can find in products? So some examples that we can see are some viruses and bacteria. For example, Salmonella and Staphylococcus aureus, you can find it on meats. Also, the Salmonella, you can find it on eggs. The Salmonella is very common in most of the products. So that's why that we should know very well about this kind of products and bacteria. We have, for example, parasites and viruses like hepatitis A in fish and shrimps. Then we have, for example, again, Salmonella. You can see Salmonella in most of the categories. We have Salmonella in fruits, vegetables, spices, cereals. We have Bacillus cereus also in spices and cereals, and hepatitis A in fruits and vegetables, and toxins and chemicals in oils and fats. This is very important for you to know because you need to identify the different kind of bacteria and viruses that you can find in products in order to know how to manipulate them to train your people. And for general culture also, it's very important to know this kind of aspects. Then another physical hazard that you can find in food are, for example, bone particles, stones, insect fragments, or metal. So that's why you should check very well your products when you receive the product from the storage room. And also people who work in the purchasing department, they should know about this because they can help you at the time they receive the product from the supplier. They should check, for example, that everything comes to the storage room in good conditions without any kind of these physical, for example, hazards. When you do this step number 1 and you conduct your analysis, you can go to principle number 2. And the principle number 2 is determine the critical control point. What is this? This is how you are going to try to eliminate or remove the hazard, or how you are going to prevent it, or how you are going to reduce the risk that the hazard will happen again in the future. So this means the different operation, procedure, or practice that you are going to develop in your restaurant in order to prevent this kind of hazards. When you do this, you can go to principle number 3. In principle number 3, you are going to apply the procedure that you develop in the number 2. In the principle number 3, you are going to set the critical limit. So how? In this principle, we work the most with the temperature of the products, which is the most important part, how you are going to maintain your products in good conditions. So we can see here the image, and we can talk a little bit about the different ranges we have in the different temperatures according to the products we are going to manipulate. So for example, we have, you can see in the image, temperatures under minus 18 Celsius. Minus 18 Celsius, all the products are going to be frozen, the type of product that should be frozen. So if you can see here, the virus are going to be asleep, no growth. We're not going to have any kind of growth of viruses. Then we go to another range, which is the chill temperature. The temperature range here is from 1 to 4 degrees. Products, for example, like milk or eggs, that maybe you can have in these temperatures, viruses are going to be sleepy. But from 5 degrees to 63 degrees, we have the kind of temperature that we call temperature danger zone, the TDZ. In this range, all the viruses are going to multiply. So you should be very careful with the products that you are going to manipulate in this temperature, because you are going to have higher probabilities to have viruses in these products. Then we go to cooking temperatures. For example, from 63 to 80 degrees. In this temperature, the viruses are too hot and they are going to start dying. And finally, we have the highest temperature, which is from 80 to more than 100 Celsius, which is the kind of temperature of boiling water, for example. And in this temperature, the viruses are going to be completely dead. We are going to have no growth of viruses. So this is how the different temperatures are important, and you should know the products that you should have in the different temperatures and how you need to manipulate them in order to avoid to have any kind of viruses. Then we have principle number 4. In the principle number 4, you are going to establish monitoring procedures. What is the meaning of that? That means that you are going to create your own practices. How you are going to do the different strategies in order to avoid that your products are going to be contaminated. So something important in this step that is that the procedure should be measurable, that you need to measure the results anytime, frequent, that you are going to establish how many days you are going to apply or how many times per week or per month, accurate, that you're going to give you results, recorded, you need to record all the information by writing or digital in this case, but you should have the recorded information, and verifiable. That means that everybody in the company should check this kind of reports or this kind of procedures. Also, you have audits at your hotel. Maybe the auditors are going to ask you for this kind of reports. So that's why that's important, why you need to have this recorded and available for them to verify. Then in in step number 5 or in principle number 5, you are going to apply corrective actions. According to the results that you find out in step number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4, you are going to start applying your actions, your corrective actions, in order to avoid that the wrong results are going to be again in the future. The corrective action should be also very specific, so straight to the point, what to do if you find out this and this. Planned, verifiable, and recorded also. You should record all this. And in the principle number 6, you are going to verify. According to the procedures that you establish on step number 4 and you develop in step number 5, you are going to verify in step number 6 that all these activities were developed according to the plan that you created. Okay? So in this step, you are going to verify and determine that the validity of the plan, and also that the whole system, the whole HACCP system is operating according to your instructions. And finally, in principle number 7, you need to record. Everything that you do with this plan, you should record it, because you should have all the information available for everyone. If the general manager asks for this, if the owner of the hotel asks for the information, if you have an audit for government people, for government ministries, you should show your information. So that's why you need to have records. And also, this kind of records is going to help you in order to train your staff. You can use this material for training. So I hope that you have very clear these 7 steps and how to develop the HACCP program in your hotel. To talk a little bit about another topic which is very related and very important also, we have hygiene standards. Why we need to establish hygiene standards in our restaurant, in our hotel, and how you are going to make your people to accomplish these standards. So first of all, we have the personal hygiene. The personal hygiene is very important, is crucial in any kind of person that works in this industry, in the hospitality industry. It is important in order to avoid contamination, so that's why you need to explain very well your staff how to wash the hands and also how to prevent the cross-contamination in food, okay? And the personal hygiene they should have at the time they enter into the work area. Here you can see in the image the different steps that you need to follow in order to wash your hands very well. We have 6 different steps, and you should take about 30 seconds in order to wash your hands very well from here to here. And you should have this kind of images in all the areas related. For example, in the kitchen, you should have these images, obviously in the bathrooms, in the restrooms. In every area that you have washing areas, you should have this image because everybody should know about this. And then we have a few explanations about the importance of the clothes for the people that work in the kitchen. Why they should use the uniform in the complete uniform, and the importance of the different parts of the uniform. For example, the importance of the scarf to absorb the sweat, the importance of the apron in order to provide extra protection when they are cooking, and also the importance of the chef shoes, that you should use a special shoes, not any kind of shoes, in order to work in the kitchen area, in order to prevent any kind of slippery in the kitchen. And the hairnet, why you should use the hairnet for everybody, for women, because most of the women, they have maybe long hair. That's why they need to use it. Even though they have short hair, they should use it also to prevent physical contamination in food. Also, why you should use a specific chef jackets made out of cotton in order to save the chef to be fired with the clothes, and also helps to isolate the body from the heat of the stove. Also the pants, is the same function of the jacket, to isolate from the heat of the stove. And the importance why men should not use beards, mustache, long nails, and the jewelry in women is not permitted either. So this is a kind of image that you can see later and you can read in order to see the importance of the clothes and why you should use your own uniform properly. Also, another important part is the use of the equipment in the kitchen, right? Because we use all this equipment to prepare the food. So it's important to avoid contamination also in the equipment, not only in the products. We should take care about the equipment too. So in here, you can see the different steps that you can follow in order to prevent contamination of the equipment. And we have the different steps to clean and disinfectation for the cleaning equipment, for the kitchen equipment, sorry. So we have, first of all, we need to prepare the equipment. Then we need to clean. Third, we need to rinse. Fourth, we need to disinfect. And finally, we need to dry. In every step, you can see how you should do it and which are the different temperatures that you should use with the water in order to wash the different equipment. And most of the hotels, they have a specific products for this, that you can buy in a specific supplier to remove any kind of grease or any kind of contamination. Okay, just to start finishing the class, another important aspect is the pest management. As I said before in the previous slides, the maintenance manager is the responsible to control this part. So he is going to be the one to organize all the calendar and also to contract the supplier for the pest management. He is going to decide how many times per month are going to be applied the program, and most of the time, at least once a month, the hotel should be pests. Why is it important to have a pest management program? Because pests can cause serious health and economic problems. They can contaminate the food, they can spread diseases, they can destroy food, and they can damage premises. So that's why you should create a specific plan for this and follow the plan all the time. And this means not only on the F&B restaurant, this means in the whole hotel. If we are talking about hotel, we mean that the pest management should be applied in rooms, public areas, banqueting rooms, front and back areas, and obviously F&B areas. And some problems that can be prevented when you apply the pest management program is, for example, you should have your food covered all the time. You should store your food off the floor in appropriate containers. Never you should leave food outside. Not allow water in drains, sinks, or buckets in order to attract moisture. You should check in the deliveries very carefully because pests can enter in packages, vegetables, fruits, cereals, and grains. That's why I said before that the people that work in the storage room, the people that work in the purchasing department, when they receive the products from the supplier, they should check the condition of the product to be sure that everything is coming to the storage room in the good condition. Something important, checking the store goods regularly, rotate the stock is very important in order to disrupt any kind of nesting places and report any kind of damage in packages. Just to mention some, you can see on the screen that I have 13 different reasons why, but just to mention like the most important ones. So another important part is the storage. I'm mentioning a storage room very frequently because the relationship between purchasing a storage room and F&B is very, very, very close. So the storage room should develop or should take care about this. So for example, use temperatures in a correct way. Heats or low temperatures. If you have drying products, how you should preserve these kind of products. Also, any kind of chemical preservation in processes. If you have vacuum products, how to use these kind of procedures, or smoking products, and also if irradiation, you can use this kind of method in order to preserve and kill spoilage and pathogenic microbes. So with this, I finish my presentation. I hope this presentation is going to help you in order to know a little bit more about the food safety management. I hope you have very success in your careers, and I hope to see you very well in the near future. Bye-bye.